Welcome to Source Medicine. My name is Nikolay Ayerov, quantum security specialist and founder of Avo Peace.
And I'm Anita, medical herbalist, biomedical scientist, intuitive healer, and frequency medicine practitioner. Together, we explore what it means to remember that healing doesn't start with fixing something broken, but with listening to what is already whole.
Each week, we'll travel between the seen and the unseen, from ancient herbal wisdom, nutrition, and nervous system science, to energy work, polarity, and the quiet intelligence that moves through all of us.
Our conversations aren't prescriptions, they are invitations. We are not here to tell you what's true, but to help you feel truth in your own body.
So wherever you are, walking, driving, taking a rest, let it remind you that you are part of the medicine.
This is Source Medicine. Hello and welcome back. Today we will dive into a topic that is right at the edge of science, health, and deeper interpretation of life itself. Viruses. Most people, when they hear word virus, they immediately think about the illness that gives a lot of fear. But viruses are more far fundamental than that. They are also part of the biology fabric of life on this earth. And they also help us to evolve a response to stress. So in this episode, we explore two layers of viruses. The first, what viruses actually are at the biological level, and the second, how energetic perspective interprets the presence in the body and in human experience.
So when it comes to viruses, how can like the standard person understand what a virus is and how it affects their day-to-day life? Because all of us are probably sitting with at least 6 to a dozen viruses probably within us, and they can be in our bodies for decades. And most of the times they're harmless, but there's times where the immune system goes down and certain things activate, certain things come up. So kind of lead us into a story of like understanding the picture of a virus.
Viruses are actually the smallest microbes that infect us. And how small we can compare to, let's say, a pin. It would need 500 millions rhinoviruses, so they are the viruses that cause common cold, to actually cover the head of the pin.
Wow.
500 millions. So they are the smallest, and the biggest of them is only 400 nanometers. That means 0.0004 millimeter in diameter. They are the most abundant, let's say, particles in this world because there's more viruses than the stars in the universe.
Wow.
And a very interesting fact is that 8% of our genome, our genetic materials, comes from viruses. So that also tells us how in evolution the viruses play an important role in our development. But how the virus affects us, because we usually, when we talk about the virus, we think about the illness. So viruses are not fully alive in traditional biological sense. So they cannot reproduce by themselves. They need a host cell, like us, like all plant cell, animal cell, or human cells, to be able to reproduce. So first, for example, when we get a virus, like let's say common cold, we breathe it, the virus will attach to our cell receptors, to the cell membrane. And then it gets in as the whole virus, or only it puts its own genetic material, because viruses are very simple in structure. They only have the genetic material in the form of DNA or RNA. They have protective code made from proteins, and some viruses have also lipid, means fat-based envelope on the top. So when the virus will attach to the cell, it goes inside as a whole, or only it gives the genetic material inside our cells. That moment, our cells is hijacked. So viruses takes over the whole cell machinery and starts to produce own viral compounds using our cellular machines, So our cell cannot function properly because it's doing another job. It actually creates viruses particles. And when it's done, the virus is assembled again from those particles, and it's released from the cells. And this is why virus infection is spreading so quickly in the body, but also between people. The basic name actually of the virus comes from Latin, and it means poison.
Oh, really?
That's quite interesting, yeah. But
Interesting.
viruses don't only, as I said, don't only infect the humans, they also affect the plants, they infect animals, they also infect bacteria. They keep this kind of balance in the environment also between different microbes. So when we think about viruses, yeah, we think about the negative things, but we should also think about the positive, because thanks to viruses, the genetic material got, so let's say mixed between also different organisms, and that created more evolved species. The viruses are driving this genetic evolution, but they also influence our immune system. Yeah, they help us also to train our immune system to be able to fight the threats. And this is why some viruses, when you get them during the childhood, for example, measles, you don't get them again because your body already produced antibodies against them. So it's already trained. Also, the viruses will help to regulate the whole microbial ecosystem in our body. And as I said, in the planet, because they can attack and kill bacteria that are pathogenic and are present, for example, on our skin or in our gut. There are very positive things about the viruses, but of
And so
course,
can you give us example of like what virus or how a virus can benefit us in this way? Like basically like an immune cell that goes and kills pathogenic understanding. So you're saying a virus can also play this role?
well, we have many immune cells. The immune cells will recognize that particular virus, the particular, let's say, protein on the code of the virus, and will start to give signals to other cells of our immune system to produce antibodies. So we produce the antibodies that can then kill that particular virus. And our body is already trained to recognize that virus. But viruses can be also genetically very similar. So the next time you get some other virus, your body already knows that, okay, that's the virus, and can quicker produce also the antibodies against the new virus. Yeah. So not only virus infection can mean something bad, but it also will absolutely train our immune system. And I personally believe that we should be exposed to our environment, yeah, to different so-called pathogens, but to different microbes, to different bacteria, to different viruses, to exactly strengthen our immune system. Because look at the children who are let's say, very protected. So the parents are really taking care that there is no microbes in the house. They clean the house, so-called this hygienic theory, that the more you kind of keep clean the environment, the immune system is more
Becomes
weaker.
weaker. Yeah. Because I remember when I was a kid, I grew up in New York City, and I remember I didn't care about, you know, hygiene in that sense, where like if I dropped something on the floor of New York City, I'd still pick it right up and I'll eat it. And it's probably not the greatest idea in the world, but at the same time, it seems like I literally every time I told anyone that says, "Oh, that's so weird. Why would you do that?" I'm like, I have an immune system, don't I? Like,
And eating this food from the ground, I'm not saying everybody should do it. No,
no,
but
of
like,
course not.
as
But
a
it's like exposing yourself to a little bit of
yeah.
here and there. It's like you have a 5 second rule. They say if you drop it within 5 seconds, the bad things can't get on the food if you eat it. But obviously it's a joke. But at the same time, it's like that's just kind of an example of like when you're a kid, you would be playing in the dirt, you'd be playing in the mud, you're getting dirty. You like, especially having like dirt on you is also incredibly good for your biome and understanding everything because there's life force in the dirt and there's so much microbiome in just raw dirt, that when you get it in your nails, on your face, on even a little bit in your mouth, that actually like gives you a life, like a different biome. Humans are very conditioned to be very clean and very almost too hygienic, to where when you don't expose yourself to stimulus, be it the same thing going to the gym, be it the same thing, any kind of stimulus that helps you train something. And it's the same thing with going to different countries, right? If like American stays in America all his life and then he goes to India, for example, every country is its own microbiome. It has its own bacteria, its own parasites, its own viruses, its own things that a body becomes very used to, and it understands how to function. This is why I think, back in the day when they had 200, 300 years ago, when people would come into new lands, viruses and different things would spread very quickly, like smallpox and different things, which would kill a lot of people off because there's too much information being transferred without the enough integration period for things to adjust. And that can cause loss of life. It can cause a lot of things. So, yeah.
There are studies that compare population of kids that grew up in the villages versus kids that grew up in the big cities. And of course, in the villages, kids have more access to, being outside, being in the nature, playing with the soil and being between animals.
Yeah.
And they found out that their gut and skin microbe was much more diverse than in children in big cities. And of course, those children from villages are less prone to allergic and autoimmune diseases. And what you said about the different microbes in different countries, this is very interesting because, for example, if you go to Asia and you get food poisoning there, for you, it can be life-threatening when you come from Europe or America. But for them, it's so, let's say, normal that they may get nothing or just mild discomfort. But if they would come
every day.
but if they come to, let's say, our land and they get bacteria that for us are normal, for them can be life-threatening. But I want to still mention the very known negative biological aspects of viruses, because as I explained, they enter our cell, they hijack our cell machinery. So what they can actually do, they can damage the cells or kill the cells. So for example, hepatitis virus can damage the liver cell and causing even liver cancer. Yeah, they will trigger inflammation, which is the most common symptom, because when we get virus infection, we feel fever, we feel fatigue. Some mucus is producing more. So we have to understand that those responses are not just caused by virus particles itself, but our immune system response, which is also a good sign because our immune system starts to fight with that virus. Yeah. And as you mentioned, the viruses like to also hide in the body. They are so-called dormant viruses, and they will activate later. So very good example is herpes simplex, and also varicella that can cause shingles. So the viruses can stay dormant for even like decades. But when we are stressed, when we are depleted in nutrients, when we don't sleep well, they can reactivate easily. The viruses can also affect our nervous system because they can hijack pretty much every cell, even the brain cells and the nerve cells. So they can cause even paralysis, of course, and headaches and nerve pain and so on. They will weaken the immune system. The longer we have them, of course, the body has to constantly keep, let's say, fighting with them or keep them in the low level. good example also of the virus that it's affecting directly immune cells are HIV virus. Some viruses will contribute to the cancer development because the genetic material will bind to our genome exactly where we have genes responsible for controlling any cancerous processes in the body. And those are, for example, hepatitis B virus, hepatitis C virus, Epstein virus even. And viruses will, of course, affect our energy and the metabolism. That's why so many people with chronic viral infection, even like post-COVID, yeah, they are constantly exhausted. They have brain fog, they have muscle weakness. So those are the major like biological aspects of the viral infection in our body.
Can I ask one question? Because there's
Of
one thing
course.
that keeps sticking in my mind. You said there was 8% of the biology of our cells can have the potential of being viruses, right?
Mhm.
And when we're talking about like in scale, there's about 1 trillion something cells in our body, right?
Mhm.
So 8% is a staggering number if you're looking in that aspect. If we even go back further, we understand that most of our body is just bacteria. It's some form of, obviously it's cells, bacteria, some fungus. So it's basically we're just a living culture of conscious sentient material that's walking and functioning in such a brilliant way. Because especially when you're talking about the little like how small a virus can be, realistically speaking, that can just go right through your skin cell, right? Like if it's like a micron thick, it's just fascinating how our immune system functions in a way that is constantly managing all the trillions of potential confusions. You can touch this, you can touch a cat, you can touch a dog, you can touch someone, and there's always interaction. So as far as the immune system goes, how do you feel? What is the best thing that we can do for ourselves, as far as obviously exposing yourself within different cultures, different experiences? We were talking about mud a little bit. There's also another point I wanted to bring up as I feel we're getting to a point in humanity where we're getting so diverse that our bodies are starting to, maybe not starting to, but maybe the new generation is starting to crave more biological diversity. So people are starting to find partners in other cultures and other microbiomes, essentially, because it seems like the biology prefers to have a wide range of antibodies, right? A wide range of, okay, you have this culture, I have this culture, we're coming together now. That seems like more diverse and more fortified than having, two people come together in the same culture. Because for a long time, it seems like everyone just kind of paired up with whatever was next to them in the grand scheme of things. But now that we've gotten so international, it seems like intercultural kind of, you can even say breeding or mixing, seems to be more and more and more popular.
Mhm.
So I guess the overall question here is, do you feel there is a shift in humanity as far as more diversity biologically is needed to continue to have strong immune systems that can keep up with all of the crazy viruses, man-made and biologically evolving?
Mhm.
Because obviously in the last 6 years, that seems like that has been the main topic, right? Because you
Mhm.
mentioned COVID, you mentioned all this stuff, but for the hundreds and hundreds of years, viruses have been a topic, plagues have been a topic. People, like the population was shrank because of such horrible experiences. And obviously right now it's being used as, there's a whole fear mechanism around it. There's a whole control thing around it. Well, we can get into that later on, but as far as how humanity is moving forward in a very biological way, do you feel there is more of this biological need, not a conscious need? Because most of our actions are not conscious. The biology is intelligent and it knows what it's doing and it knows what kind of partner would be best for the next offspring, right? Because that's really what attraction more or less is about, is how can we make the strongest child?
I strongly believe that we do it unconsciously. What you said, which we mix the we mix our genes with other, let's say, populations of people with different cultures, with different genetic backgrounds. Because I feel we are living in the times that we need to make ourselves stronger. We live in the times that it's really, let's say, bombarded with different kinds of viruses. Many of them are human-made, as you said, because as a former biotechnologist, I can say it's not that complicated to make a virus in laboratory settings, because as I explained, viruses are very simple in their structure. The genetic material and protein code, and some have also envelope. The viruses that are now, let's say, around us, they create quite a big health problems. I feel that they even create much more problems than before in the history, because if it's a synthetic virus, our body also have to learn that synthetic virus, for the first time. Even it has the same particles as or most of the particles that the normal natural virus has. Still, it's a foreign for our body. And I believe that we do this kind of genetic transfer between different, nations, just to strengthen our immune system.
Yeah.
What we can do, like in more, this is a long term, work.
Like generational security, of course.
Absolutely. But what we can do on a daily basis, it's actually to support our immune system every single day. And how we do it, we need to make sure that we don't lack any nutrients, especially vitamin C. Our body cannot produce vitamin C. Many animals can do that. We cannot. So with the vitamin C, in general, what we hear as a daily recommendation is 60 milligrams. 60 milligrams is just enough to cover like minimum basic needs of our cells. And when on the top comes like stress, comes viral infection, nutritional deficiencies, 60 milligrams is nothing. When we get viral infection, we need like 1 gram every 2 hours.
That's like 1,000
We
milligrams,
need to,
right?
we need to get to the point that we saturate ourselves with vitamin C, so we even get diarrhea. And that's a moment that, okay, this is the dose. It's okay for me to keep during the viral infection. And you do it until the virus is gone. So we have to support
and
our
diarrhea,
nutrition.
You're saying, is basically your body saying, okay, that's too much.
That's too much.
Right?
And then you keep a bit lower dose than that.
Okay.
And you
And
go
how
for
long
it.
would someone like on an acute situation, how long should, because there's times where I had upwards of 7 grams, maybe 10 grams of like vitamin C, because you just take a huge dose.
The
And
thing
then because
is
it's
you
water
should,
soluble as well, so it's not really toxic for you. So
well, it's people with chronic kidney disease must be very careful with that. But normally you take it like gram every 2 hours until the saturation point, and you do it every day until you feel better. So the vitamin C, you don't take like 10 grams at once, because you won't absorb that. So it's with magnesium, you take in divided doses. So you have to be sure your nutritional status is balanced. So not just vitamin C, but vitamin D. Again, the daily recommendation is just nonsense, because, for example, they tell you that you have to take 2,000 units of vitamin D daily, while 30 years ago, children were getting 300,000 units when they were getting sick. So see the difference?
Yeah.
And that's why so many people have very disbalanced immune system these times. Vitamin D, then of course, omega-3 as the anti-inflammatory, as the really immunoboosting. And what else? Stress level. This is the killer. We already spoke many times about the stress, but to keep our immune system at really top, to prevent any viral infection, to also not reactivate viruses in our body, we need to really keep balance with stress. Find a way to get rid of the stress, or rather to manage the stress. I don't think we can get rid of the stress. We can just learn to react to that stress differently. Toxins. We are surrounded by so many toxins. We eat these toxins every day. We breathe these toxins. So even at your home, try to minimize the toxins like cleaning product, cosmetics, and so on, because each of them will definitely lower your immune responses. And time in the nature, time with the people with who you feel good, not who drain you. Again, we talk about that too. When you are in community of people, when you feel accepted, you feel loved, you feel really nice, that will really boost you, not only mentally, but will definitely impact your biochemical mechanisms in the body.
I feel like this is a very important thing to mention is community, because I don't know how if we mentioned community, because we mentioned all the other toxins before, but having a proper community or a support system, I feel like that is one of the greatest stress relievers there are, because you're never going to avoid problems. You're never going to avoid like stresses that come into your life. But how you manage it is not just about breathing techniques. It's not just about properly having yourself nourished with vitamins, minerals, nutrients, but it's also about who you can speak to in issues when issues arise. Do you have a support system that can hear you out? Because a lot of times when you just speak something out, like if you're overthinking, the greatest solver for overthinking is just to feel safe to express that thoughts to someone you feel safe with, right? Because immediately when you let something out mentally, it just disappears because it just needs an outlet. But the problem is most people keep everything to themselves. They are afraid to do this. So I think finding people you feel safe with, be it, you know, your best friend, be it like a family member, be it your significant other, or be it like a coworker that just like you can have a good conversation with. Like I feel that is a very important thing, not just for your immune system, for your stress levels, for your emotional well-being, for your mental well-being, having, you know, proper connections. I feel that that is almost as important as having like vitamin C, for example. Like you can't create another human experience within yourself. And you need that another human experience to really balance certain things in your body with the oxytocin, with the serotonin, with all of the things that strengthen you as a person. Obviously, you know, they say even having like with your partner, when you have great sex, for example, that's also a very bonding thing and a very strengthening thing for your immune system. Not just because there's exchange of data, but because oxytocin and all these factors very much strengthen how we move forward on all levels of our being. So I just wanted to anchor the fact that community and having a support system is incredibly beneficial for moving forward in any capacity, especially when there's sickness, especially when there's challenges, especially when there's anything happening. But yeah,
there's many scientific data already on that topic. The studies show that when you spend time with your loved ones or with your friends, the level of inflammatory molecules like cytokines are lowering. Hugging is another way to lower the inflammation, and boost the immune system. So,
and I think they said like a longer hug, not just like a quick awkward hug,
no.
but like a
It's
solid
not.
like
You
5,
need
6 second. Yeah.
You need actually around 20-second hug.
Oh, even
to really boost your immune system, not like, you know, this 3 seconds hug that you just come like type somebody on the back and that's it. But I'm interested about the viruses not only from the biological perspective, because there is something new, some new concept that I want to talk about. And it's very new, I believe, to many people who are listening to us, but it's also new to me. Because from the energetic perspective, they're also viruses, yeah? So at the energetic level, what the virus means actually, and what is the function of virus?
So this is where it gets interesting, and this is where it feels like the paradigm kind of flips up on its head, where essentially the basic function of a virus, energetically speaking, is just a carrier of information. And I've already kind of mentioned this a little bit when obviously different countries or different populations, or even if you're going out of space, and there's always terrified of like picking up a foreign virus or a foreign something, and then because you don't know how it's going to affect this biology, right?
Mhm. When you
So
talk about the carrying the information, because at the
yes,
biological we know it's genetic material, what do you
sure.
mean by that in the energetic level?
So, and in energetic level, emotions also are part of energy.
Mhm.
Emotions are energy in motion, right?
Mhm.
So many things can be carried, like for example, DNA activations on a more energetic quantum. You can even say level. Many things can be attached, let's say, to a virus because a virus, like you said, it can be easily made. Anybody that is highly intelligent in that realm can easily create a biological or even energetic virus because, as we've discussed in previous episodes, there's two layers to our body. There's the energetic portion, and then there's the physical portion, and they're always going in between each other rapidly, right? So there's an entire energetic layer to our physiology, to our physiognomy, to our multidimensionality, beyond just the cells and the trillions of biomass that we experience, right? So what energy really means in this department is information that is not seen in the sense of reading DNA information, right? It's information that is transmitted into the DNA to give it commands, as when you have the energetic portion and the physical portion. Like, for example, if you have the energetic portion of an organ, depending on what the emotional components and the energy components of that organ is holding in that energetic space will automatically affect the physical, let's just say liver. If it's in liver typically is holds anger, something, and frustration. So you can imagine if anger can affect the cells of the liver to overburden it with, and then it has to produce, then it's gonna produce some toxins and all the stuff that match basically a physical thing. With a virus, it's just like a USB stick, right? It's a USB stick that can be used to upgrade a civilization, meaning that it can upgrade either your nervous system level, right? Train it to a new degree. Like you were saying, you get a cold, a virus, a flu, right? And then your biology says, okay, we'll create the compound that once we get it, this is the concept of a vaccine, right? The concept of vaccine is you get a very harmless version of the virus. So your body can get basically the data of what it needs to support itself, uh, to basically get a shield
Mhm.
from later strains, right?
Here I want to mention something because you talk about vaccines. We have to remember that the vaccines, when they were for the first time developed, they worked, or the concept of the vaccine was a bit different than the concept of the vaccines now.
Absolutely. But we're talking about like what the concept is. Obviously, the how vaccines operate now, it's a whole different story and it's a complete mess. But the original purpose of a virus is basically think of it the way I see it energetically is like a blank slate. And you can color it any color you want, and you can put any intention you want and any purpose you want, similar to programming like artificial intelligence or programming any system to function in a very specific way. It's essentially like a robot, right? You give it commands, you give it input, and it carries out the function. however you wish. So this can obviously be done by benevolent intentions, meaning that it'll help activate certain things within your biology. It can activate dormant strands in your DNA. That would be considered an upgrade. It can also add codes, and codes is energetic language for data, cellular data, energetic data, emotional data. All of this is essentially the same thing as adding vitamin C, zinc, all of these things in the physical realm, right? It's something that helps boost and support your natural functions, right?
So why viruses are considered so bad to us if they in evolution were also to help us evolve, to help us protect from different pathogens, especially bacteria?
In the pure state of expression with humanity, if there was, let's just say, no interference with humanity's evolution, viruses would be constantly introduced into the population by higher intelligent beings, let's say it this way, as to expand our little understanding of things. Earth is more or less an experiment ground, right? We've come to almost like a school, and this humanity in itself is more or less an experiment, just like everything in the universe is an experiment of God, experiencing itself in different fractals and different experiences. And there's always like a civilization above, like an intelligence above our intelligence, just like we would see humans looking at animals, animals looking at insects, insects looking at plants, plants looking at rocks, rock. So there's a chain of intelligence, let's just say, that has its own understanding, its own capacity. There's always uh, multiple levels of consciousness. So I want to bring in multidimensionality into this because number one, that's what energy really is. It's just understanding the layers of, depending on what perspective you're looking from, depending on what scale you're looking from, just when you're talking about the smallest micron. If you're thinking about like a 50 million things landing on like a pin, that's a scale that is so, that's a whole different
500.
world. Exactly. 500 million on one little pin. Just if you think about that, that's an entire different universe at that point. You know, everything is drastically different. Everything looks different. Like if you were to look skin, it would look porous and huge, and there would be massive holes in your skin, and you can see all of these things. But when you look from this perspective, it looks like smooth. So everything has a different perspective. So when we're talking about biology and we're talking about viruses, and we're talking about benevolence and malevolence, depending on what intention is, like if it's man-made or if it's made with harmful intentions. I call that corrupted data, right? Most people understand what a corrupted file is, and or at least most people have experienced what a corrupted file is on a computer. When
That's why
something
it's
is
called virus.
exactly. And it's the same thing. Viruses are also, ever since basically when the internet came out, I think within a year we had viruses. So it's essentially depending on the intention of what the programmer is, the depending on what happens with the biology or the system that it's infecting, right? So typically, the whole point of viruses on a computer sense is to either extract information or to cripple systems. Technology and biology almost always go hand in hand because it just we're identical in certain in ways that you can compare very easily. So essentially, if viruses on a computer sense are meant to either disable a system or extract information from a system. When you apply this to biology, obviously, if a virus is made to disable your system, you would have, organs failing. You would have certain systems that would not be functioning properly, right? It would shut down certain parts of the biological process and corrupt the cells around it until those cells wouldn't function. The same way, if it's meant to upgrade you, it would create a feeling of lightness, a feeling of expansion. Maybe it would create a little bit of flu symptoms in the beginning. Because many people call it a spiritual flu, for example, when something is upgrading you, right? So you feel bad for a little bit, but then you feel stronger afterwards. It's the same thing. What happens where something is involved, where when you do feel stronger, that means you might see things in a different way. You might perceive things in a different way because you got new data sets that you can work with.
Mm-hmm.
So now, when you're talking about all of this corrupted data that we're experiencing through all of these viruses, through all the known viruses like Epstein-Barr, anything from the norovirus. Essentially, what these all do is they restrict certain patterns within your nervous system and your biology and how you even process emotions. So, for example, certain viruses can impact how you're processing grief, how you're processing sadness, how you process frustration, and how much joy you can actually feel. And these are all programmed in a specific way that acts as a buffer to some degree. And this is a conversation that I don't know how common it's been had because it's many people speak about viruses, obviously, on the how to get rid of them, how to create dormancy in them, all biologically focused.
And can I ask,
Yeah.
is it that one type of virus, for example, adenovirus,
Yes.
would affect just one particular emotion, or would help us to, let's say, digest or experience one particular emotion? Or is it just that one virus can affect different emotions in different people?
Each virus has its more general topic, like the adenovirus that has a very specific code set that it will follow. And typically, it's going to be replicated in every single person. And it's going to have more or less the same effect on every single person, just like the Epstein-Barr has a very specific effect on each person. There's certain people that can read into these understandings. And I've started to at least be trained or understanding to read these patterns. And this is how I've come to a lot of this information. It's many people have very specific gifts. With me, I see code in biology. So I see the energetic code of how biology works. And then from there, I have seen potential impacts that site and moving around specific code can impact biology in a way. You work with a person, and then you have scans later on, let's say, bone fractures or malignancies of certain growths, and there is measurable difference. So obviously, I'm no doctor, I'm no scientist to make any claims, or nor am I making any claims, but when you just have evidence medically diagnosed through scans, through understandings, you start putting together some form of understandings.
If, for example, you or another person who knows
Sure.
how to work on the code of that virus at the energetic level, if you would affect that code in one person, and we know that viruses are spreading,
Yes.
that's their nature, they spread from person to person. So do you think that this upgraded, or let's say modified code in that virus at the energetic level could also be spread from that person to another one?
This is all hypothetical at this point, obviously, but hypothetically speaking, it is very possible that when you have let's say, a cleansed virus that is now operating on a whole different energetic spectrum, and that energetic spectrum will always bleed into the physical spectrum and obviously the body will take some time to catch up with that because the body works much slower than energetic shifts because energetic shifts happen immediately. Body shifts can take weeks to months. So, yes, it is hypothetically possible that when a virus is cleansed, it will continue to function in that specific understanding. Because, like you said, a virus is not really a consciousness, it's more just a program or an operating system that is given specific directions and it'll keep following those directions to the specifications. So, when that code is changed, the operating system is changed, how it spreads through, different people, like a virus normally would, through either contact, through breath. There is a hypothetical understanding that it will spread and potentially start cleansing, essentially, people instead of infecting people. So it infects through cleanse. So it's
Mhm.
basically like instead of corruption spreading, light starting to spread.
Mhm.
And light is the opposite, more or less, of corruption. Because more or less, if you just strip it all back, light is the presence of source. It's the information of God. It's the pure essence of everything that is true. And corruption or darkness, how people say it, is the absence of that information, right? It's the disconnection from that information. Even though there's always even the smallest spark of God, even in darkness. So God can never be fully taken out of the picture. It can just be dimmed to very, very drastic amounts. That's how I would see information being spread on an energetic level that has a very potential hypothetical understanding of how it can affect biology moving forward. And obviously, that's going to take extensive study to eventually prove that hypothesis.
Mhm.
But it is hypothetically how we understand viruses to spread, how we understand things to work. Now, it's basically like if you were to basically put a flush on your computer and spread it through many computers, it's a good thing. You would think that an antivirus, for example, right, works by decorrupting viruses or cleaning out your computer. It's basically like an antivirus for biology,
Mhm.
for
And
people to have a context or reference to understand, because, like I said, computers and biology are very synonymous.
mhm. And here I have still like two questions or something that since few minutes already are
Sure.
rotating in my head. Number one is we talked also about the viruses like computer viruses, yeah. And I read some article when they were claiming it could happen that this, let's say, cyber viruses could actually attack humans as well.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And I'm thinking like, what's your feeling about it? Like, would that be possible? Because it's if I have to even imagine this at the biological level, but this is, I believe, more about the energetic level. Would this kind of virus, cyber virus, could spread to humans at the energetic level?
So the best way to understand this, at least concept, is the like when COVID happened, the one thing I said over and over again is COVID was not the virus. The fear attached to it was the real virus, right? Because realistically speaking, the biological impact of it was on the level more or less of a common cold, right? It was certain numbers were inflamed, certain things were happening, and a lot of people were passing due to extenuating symptoms. But it wasn't by any mean a pandemic. Uh, the real pandemic was the fear narrative that was driven.
And
And
that's
that's what
an
happened.
effect also of the nocebo. You know, we know the effect
Yeah,
placebo, which is the
yeah,
positive effect on our
exactly.
thoughts to our body, on
Yeah,
our health. But nocebo is exactly the negative effect. So if we fear of some illness, quite often
yeah,
we experience the symptoms of that illness
yeah,
also.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So the same exact play was played out in the COVID era where people were immediately fighting who's vaccinated, who's not vaccinated on all this stuff. And then there was this huge divide and this huge anger and this 6 feet and all this stuff and all that. And it was just complete disaster. But fear was the main virus that was spread, and that is the easiest virus to spread. Uh, and we're not even talking about this is it's a mental virus, right? Because when we look at the news, when we watch anything cyber, right? When we go on Facebook, when we read something, when we're when we see something and we believe something, that's more or less I would call a cyber virus, right? It's not like a program that is like, designed to somehow jump from the computer into you and like corrupt you in some way. It's really just thought forms or an idea or something that can influence. Because if you read something and you believe it, you automatically now can like feed a narrative, feed a collective consciousness, right? And there are certain understandings that when you feed, like for example, if you're always focused on conspiracy theories, right? And all of the things where, the government's doing this, the government's doing that, all of these dark things, and you're focusing on the dark things, thinking that you're going to bring those dark things to light because if you understand them more, you will be able to do something about it, or at least you'll feel like you have some form of control over this. What most people don't understand is by focusing so much on those dark things, be them true, like the fact if they're true or not matters nothing. The fact that you're focusing on it and you're constantly giving your attention to it is actually feeding into the same things that you're trying to either fight against or trying to understand more. And that's the exact opposite of what is actually helping the dissolution of those things.
Mhm.
So in that sense, this is what a cyber virus would
Mhm.
be.
Yeah, it talks to
Is
me now what you are saying
yeah,
because it look even like you watch the news, 90% or 95% of the news nowadays are very negative.
of
They
course.
are there to create exactly the fear. The fear
Yeah,
is one of the lowest in frequency emotion that will bring you really down, causing also a lot
yeah,
of physical symptoms in the body. But it's all about the technology. It's nothing new. Like everybody can read this, how the technology works nowadays. Even watching TV, let's say children's watching cartoons. Look at the cartoons where we were children. Yeah,
of
they
course.
were very playful,
Sweet.
colorful,
Yeah,
talk with
yeah,
love. Now there is like aggression. The cartoons character look already very aggressive.
yeah.
They create some kind of fear, anger, frustration in
They're
children.
talking
That's so
about some kind
many
of
children.
sexual confusions, the
Absolutely.
different understandings,
Hmm.
different genders,
That's
different roles.
yes,
Everything is being pushed as a narrative,
yes.
essentially.
And this is one
Yeah,
of the reasons why so many children nowadays suffer from, let's say, mental instability.
yeah,
Yeah, and unfortunately, they are put even to some mental units in the hospital or medicated heavily. When the reason, the root cause is absolutely different. And second thing, what I wanted to discuss, because you mentioned something that we are one experiment. It hit me what you said, because it didn't sound very positive. In this world, I felt I'm on this earth and I have nothing to say because I'm just experiment. I don't have any options, which
yeah.
I believe that we are here and in the universe, there's unlimited amount of information and options. So how I tune to that option will affect me and my life. When you say that we are that experiment, it sounds like we have no power over our life. So can you explain that more?
Yeah, when I use the word something as an experiment, automatically I'm careful not to feel like disempower people because this is the fact of the matter. First, let me talk about the inner, and then I'll talk about the micro, and then I'll talk about macro. The powers that be, the people that are running the shots in this world, on the human level and on the multidimensional level, there obviously is a bit of a war that's happening between, let's just say, some say it's good versus evil. I would say it's information versus disinformation because I like to not polarize it in the sense of good versus evil because it's not really that. It's do you want truth or do you want to be disconnected from truth? That's the real war. The only way realities can be created or uncreated is through our belief. So the easiest way to control a reality is to control a population's belief system. So the power that we have is what we choose to believe. Every single person, regardless of your consciousness level, regardless of your gifts or your spiritual capacity or anything like that, it's irrelevant. All you need to know is what you choose to expose yourself to. So as far as information, as far as news, as far as, if you want to be around negative people or not, all of these things are a choice. And these choices, as insignificant as they may seem to the individual person, make a very significant difference in how our collective moves forward. If enough people make choices in the direction of creating boundaries around only wanting to be around people that are speaking good about them, only thinking about good things, only being grateful about what's already present in their life instead of what's not present. All of these things are choices you make, and these are the power you have to move your life, not just your life forward, but everyone around you forward, because we work as a collective. Now, when we zoom out, and I'm talking about the humanity being experiment, humanity is essentially, there's many different uh, uh, civilizations, let's just say, that exist on our Earth. Many people have heard of Atlantis. Many people heard of the ancient Egyptians. Many people have heard of Lemuria. All of these were different civilizational experiments that was happening, and they went through their cycle, right? Everyone, for the most part, if you've heard about these stories, you've heard about the rise and the fall of Lemuria, of Atlantis, of Rome, of all of these major civilizations that went on for a long time. These are all free will experiments to the most part. And there has been obviously interference and corruption that has played into many of them. Um, and what that means is humanity from, let's just say, in this version of humanity, started from some primitive species like of caveman that learned how to, start right on walls, make fire, and then eventually develop into, creating grain, and then civilization. That was an evolution cycle. This evolution cycle is monitored, can be influenced with viruses, with information, with teachings by beings that are maybe looking at us like a scientist would be looking at rats. It's very similar, but it's not disempowering in the sense that you don't have a choice. There are many beings that are very benevolent, that are helping us, basically protecting us as much as possible through being interfered to an extent that would be catastrophic to our civilization. That's why nuclear war has not happened. That's why catastrophic events are not allowed to happen. There's obviously a specific level of interference that is not allowed, but at the same time, there is a lot of corruption, a lot of other forces, let's just say, that are wishing to disconnect you from truth are that have played much role in poisoning this, our physical bodies, our mental bodies, our emotional bodies, to stop this overall awakening of humanity. Because, and this is the significant portion of this whole thing, uh, humanity is an experiment of what biology can be when it is formed in the purity of God. And the potential the human bio, like the human vessel, meaning the human body, has, it threatens the whole universal structure right now of the disinformation section of uh, beings. And what that means on a bigger level, essentially, is if the human is to awaken fully into its understanding, the fabric of reality will shift in a very drastic way, and everything is being placed in front of this evolutionary awakening to stop it from happening. Because just like a virus that has a specific goal it wants to protect and wants to maintain, because every being wants to hold their ideology and hold their beliefs as much as possible, and they don't want to lose control. We do this in our own lives, but the ones that are disconnected from source also wish to protect their ideology and how they're moving forward. And the awakening of humanity is in direct threat to that ideology. This is the reason, and this is the empowerment of this experiment, right? So the experiment is not necessarily saying that we're lab rats that are defenseless. We're, well, let's just say, experiments that are so powerful and so potent that the fear of us fully understanding that potency is the reason why there has been so much suppression. The more we understand how powerful we actually are and how one individual can make such a difference, this is why beings like Yeshua came in. If you don't know the name Yeshua, Jesus is obviously the translation in Greek. And many different masters came in to help you understand what power you hold. They were not special in any capacity. They were just special in the fact that they had access to the fullness of themselves, and they brought us closer to that understanding of what a human is possible and capable of. So this human body is incredible, and it beyond just biology. And just if you just talk about the biology, we can talk about that for hours on end, how incredible it is. But the energetics and the multidimensionally of this vessel is incredible, is potent, and it is worth fully expressing and fully loving in such a profound way, because it's the greatest creation of source so far that this universe has seen, because our potential to evolve when there is not its restrictions is immense, because you can just see how fast we're still evolving with all of the restrictions. So if the brakes were taken off, you can imagine how fast everything would evolve, because we're designed to evolve very quickly and very rapidly for a very specific purpose of love, of light, of liberation, and of expressing God through its purest form.
So the viruses in the so-called experiments and at the energetic level would be here in the form of corrupted versions. So we wouldn't actually wake up, we wouldn't raise, we wouldn't feel what the truth is and what's the source is. Is that correct?
That
Short
is
summary.
that is the most succinct summary that could have been done. Yes, many things, everything that we've experienced from a wide range of things, including viruses, are there to make it difficult. It's impossible to stop it fully. And I have to make that clear. It's impossible to stop it fully, but they can slow it down, and they're very good at slowing it down. But it's our choice to speed it up and remove the blocks and move forward. And obviously, there's people coming in like yourself and I, and many even people just watching us. We all have a very specific role in this movement, in this awakening. Now, another interesting aspect is this experiment also, like, think of it this way. If you look at a big lab, right? Let's just say like a multi-billion-dollar facility. Imagine if one rat experiment, depending on how that experiment went, would affect this entire facility in a positive or a negative way. So the impact of what's happening in this specific experiment is not just bound to Earth. It is bound to multi-layers of dimensions, multiple civilizations, multiple things that we can't even fathom. So that's why there's so much interest right now on Earth, and why there's so many beings of light coming to help us, because it's also affecting them and their civilization. We're not going to get into how or why, because that's just too far right now. Maybe in other episodes, if we get a little excited about life, we can explore that. But for now, just know that we are incredible, we are powerful, and we have far more impact on far more than we believe. Bless you.
True, true. You know,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
was the sign that that's a true. Thank you for showing us different aspects of viruses, very new to me aspect of viruses. Thank you, listeners, for your time, for your openness to listen to us and to follow us. See you in next episode.
I want to add one last thing before we end. For everyone listening to this, you may feel overwhelmed, you may not, but definitely go and ground a little bit. Feel the earth beneath you if it's not too cold outside, or just touch a tree, or do something in a way that brings you back into your body, as that is anytime you feel anything you're hearing. First of all, don't just take what we're saying to face value. Feel if it resonates within you and let go if it doesn't. And ground, especially after a conversation like we had here, it's very intense, it's very raw, and there's a lot coming out. Allow yourself to be a little still after this and not just go to the next thing if you can, obviously, because a lot has been spoken and a lot has been revealed. So just take what resonates and leave the rest.
Thank you. This is Source Medicine.